Hey guys, thought I'd share some videos with you today. Had a lovely, lovely, lovely last day of Unleavened. And so I feel like I got a few little special treats for me anyway. I'm just going to share them with you here. If I can find them. Hang on. Okay, here we go. I am going to turn the volume down on this first. These were adult storks that were just, my goodness, I could see all the details in their body. They were so close over my head. They were adult storks. They were probably mating storks because that's my bird in the background. That's not the birds in this movie because the adult storks lose their voice. The storks within the 12-month period, more or less, they'll still have some voice to make a call with. But these were absolutely voiceless in the sky. I'm a terrible photographer, as you can see, because my camera is so front end heavy, besides just being a terrible photographer. But it was quite a treat today to walk the land on the last day of Unleavened and see this spectacle in the sky. I'd been wanting to go up to Hula Valley to see these guys, but with all the quarantines and whatnot, and the Hula Valley actually has been closed. They're not accepting guests up there because it would make a gathering that would cause exposure between human beings. So anyway, so guess who brought the show to me today? And quite a show it was. Just gorgeous. There'll be a couple of more clips here, but as you can see, they're just, the skies were just teeming today. And again, these were all without a voice. So that tells me that these are an older group of storks. And these will probably be the ones that breed. As soon as that finishes, we will start a new clip. And I'll try to remember to get that timeline bar off there. So let me do this and give you a pause. Again, I apologize, I'm such a bad photographer, but I just wanted to share some of these with you. To me, they're very special. I hope they are you too. Push the button to play. I just, with the camera, they're moving so fast, it doesn't look like it, but you really can't follow them with the camera and keep a single stork in the frame. I finally just gave up trying, but I had this desire that I wanted to zoom in on one and fly my camera along beside of him so we could get a good look at him, but it just doesn't work because they are moving quite fast. It was really a spectacular sight. And there they go. And that's what they do. They come in a group and they're headed back north to the Hula Valley now. And they'll fly in this group and they'll hit a thermal of hot air and they'll stop and make that circle, fly in a vortex. And when the thermal collapses, then they'll head back north a ways longer. I wonder if that's their way of resting in their journey. So let me get another one. And this will be the final one. Squish that out of the way. These were so low overhead. I could just see all the details. You can tell they're just above the treetops in this video. And they're such a large bird. They almost have to, I'm about 5, about 5'4" with shrinkage of old age. And oops, that was it. And so they would probably come to my hip. So they're a big bird, like a goose or better. Nope, I fibbed. There's one more. Let's see if I can share it. Here we go. And play.
Oh, they're back.
They're back.
Beautiful.
Again, these were totally without a voice. This is just over my head. This is one of the reasons I just absolutely feel like we have been put in the location that we live in, is because many times the young ones I can hear calling in their voice in these flocks like this inside the house, even with the window shut. And I'll run out real quick and there'll be hundreds of these storks up over my head. Many times in our location, I have seen these migratory birds before they're reported at the Hula Valley. So I am of the absolute and total belief that our location is with intent and design by the creator whose, work I do. So, all right, now I'm going to show you another video I did today of the harvester ants, the ones that are mentioned in Proverbs. Okay, we're going to see if we can screen share this one. Yep, we can. And we will play, if I can find the play button. Nope, that's not it. Hang on. There's a... Okay, I think I got it. No. Hang on. One more minute. Let me go back over there. I'm going to pause it again. Okay, so what most of you don't know is that on Thursday, the date, let me pull the calendar up here, on Thursday of this last week, give you a date. Thursday the 13th, I did go back down to that Rhyme area to see what the condition was of the barley that I had originally inspected. And the goats had been all up in there and they had eaten out the best barley, which happens to be the dough barley. They didn't leave the barley, they left the barley that was less developed. Probably at that time, a lot of it wasn't even in dough stage. Some of it was in flowering stage. And so they ate up that good barley that had the starch in it and left the rest of it. When I was there, the rest of it was coming to that dough stage. So I couldn't really examine well what would have been left. I did look at a few of those heads, and in the field, they were very easy to come apart in my hands. They were still standing, they had not dropped, but they were very much in the advanced stages of dough. So to get a better look at what I felt like the stage of that barley would be, I went to the field that I had first visited back on around circa February 3rd or 4th, in that area. And I looked at the barley that was already standing in the field, out of the boot, as they say. You could see the awns. You could tell it was going to be a grain head. That's what out of the boot means. It's exited the body of the plant, the leaves, and you can tell what the grain will be. So that's the condition it was in. And that was, at the time I went back this time, that was 40 days. So I knew that the barley in this field should be in a similar condition to the field where the goats had eaten everything. And I was real pleased when I went there that I saw that this barley was still in the final stages of dough. What shocked me about it was at 40 days, when I took some of those grains home and I brought them back to the house. I just left them in the vehicle overnight, and I went to get them the next day within 24 hours, and they were falling apart in my hand. So I've learned this year that the barley can maintain a dough condition much longer than I thought it could. If we look at the fact that this would have been the 15th day since I had been in that field, and it was in a doe, a medium doe condition then, and it was in the latter stages of a doe condition 15 days later. Why? Simply because it was still attached to the root, and we had gotten several rains, and the temperature has been milder, that it had survived 15 more days in this condition of a doe stage. But in the 24 hours after I took these samples, in 24 hours, that 40-day-old doe barley absolutely shattered by the next morning. I'll show you a picture here that might interest you a bit. Let me see if I can do this. Okay, so this is some of the area from the very first visit to the Raim area when the anemone started coming up, circa February 3rd. You can see all of this tall growth here. This is new growth. This has come up since I originally visited that spot in early February. Do you see these little, let me see if I can stretch it up, give it a chance to focus. All of this is barley, that beautiful, beautiful crimson barley. And I'm not going to stop using that word because it's a color that it describes this barley perfectly. This crimson barley was the barley, the tufts that were born. This is them. They were the early grains that had put on heads because they were stressed by too much water. Since then, look at the color of the latter grains. They're not nearly as red. See right down here, look at this one. This one's not even red. These are the color, these are the early grains, and they're shorter than the others. Now here's the point. If that would have been, let's say, cut for a sample at the first of the month, I could have cut this and the high stalks wouldn't have been in the way. This is like a two-tier year. We had the first tier, or the omer, the early barley, born ahead of the let's call it general harvest. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't think that, well, no, I'm not going to say I don't think. I'm going to tell you straight. I didn't misrepresent anything. It's been a good year. I'm going to say something I never thought I would say. The challenges I've had and the accusations I've had, the names I've been called, actually has been good for me, because it has caused me to keep myself examined every step of the way. Every step. I have been at my Father's feet, begging him to correct me, begging him to lead me, begging him to not let me dishonor him. I mean, it has kept me exactly where I need to be, and that is examining myself, judging myself before others or he can judge me. Okay, that's what the scripture says. Paul says, if you would examine yourself, you wouldn't be accused or examined or judged by the Father. And I have been judging myself and examining myself every step of the way. The next thing you need to know is it has felt terribly uncomfortable for me a lot of the time. I was telling a brother in the Netherlands that, it was kind of like when I left the Sunday church and I felt all naked and vulnerable without fellowship. When I started following this path, I didn't do it for anybody. I've said all along that you don't have to follow me. You don't have to believe anything I say. This is what I'm doing because of my own conviction. And this is what we did in our house. I mean, this is the calendar that we kept. My hair standing up. This is the calendar that we kept in our house. And I was okay if none of you had followed me. I was still going to put it out there and tell you why. And it was your decision to make. So I have felt naked, basically, like I was stepping away from a group of people that represented something that I had believed, and now I was kind of like didn't have it anymore, like when I came out of the churches, and it feels naked. But at every step along the way, when I would tell my Father in heaven, if I am not honoring you, just tell me, and I will apologize, and I will step away from the barley, and I will never come back. There were many times this year I had this conversation with Elohim because 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 I'm human and because I want to honor him. And every time I would get to the point of doing this, and in fact, it was just before Wave Sheaf that I was up when I found the flax. I was up on my walk, and I was feeling like I just felt just like it was just I couldn't even describe how it was feeling. I think that it was just a feeling of things were coming to the end, and I was feeling a little lost, and this time is so intense for me, and so many people ask questions, and so many people want to know about the group, and and it's just and I'm in the field, and I'm watching the land, and it's a very intense time, and it was coming to an end, and things were starting to slow down, and so this feeling of change and what had been normal was leaving, and I'm not understanding, and I'm out and I'm walking and I'm saying, God, please, if I've dishonored you, just tell me and I'll step away. I don't want to do anything that hurts your name. I don't want to have anybody point their finger at me and say I've misrepresented you. And I'm going through all this, and I got a text from a guy, and he was thanking me for my pictorial evidence and said the words, not even that he was thanking me, it was words beyond that about the persecution of this year, and having suffered some of the same thing himself. And he was just being an encouragement to me. And the timing of it was perfect. And many of you have done that this year, and you know who you are if you've sent me a text. And the thing that you need to know is that many times when you've done that, I've actually been in prayer about the very things that you're sending me. So the purpose of the video is to tell you I really have tried my best to honor God and keep a good attitude during the week of unleavened bread, and be thankful for persecution. And thank you for praying for the one that has been attacking me, even our group, calling names and things like this. It's not our business. I learned a long time ago, and I've shared this with some of you, that sorrows will come our way, tribulation will come our way. And God doesn't have tunnel vision. Elohim, he doesn't have tunnel vision. He doesn't just look at the situation and judge one side as guilty or not guilty. Oh, he does that. But he looks at the innocent side, especially if they represent him, and he says, what are you going to do with what's happening to you? Are you going to operate in the flesh, or are you going to operate in the spirit? Are you going to pick up the tools and weapons of your flesh and fight it? Or are you going to step back and you're going to stay in check and let me fight it? And are you going to double down and do the things that I've asked you to, your ministry to me? This is how we fight spiritually, is we keep our eyes focused on Elohim and we double down our efforts that he's called us to when we're attacked or when we're called into question. And after we've judged ourselves and we find that we're okay with Elohim, then we put our nose back to the grindstone and we do his work and we let him fight the battle for us. Said all that to say, thank you for trusting me. If you have followed the same calendar that I did, I never, ever, ever, ever at the beginning of the year set out to create anything new that hadn't been before. And in a lot of ways, it has felt like that to me. I fully expected a 13th month this year. I took what I had previously believed to heart. So you should also know that when I came back from the inspections at the beginning of February, I already was feeling in my spirit that we were going to have a wave sheaf for the early calendar. Not a field, but a wave sheaf quantity for an early calendar. And I shared that with one person, and I didn't share it with the rest of you because I just don't like it when people say things, oh, God said blah, 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 and then it doesn't happen. So sometimes when he shows me things or impresses things upon me, I don't just say it because I know it. I think that there are some things that he says to you that you keep it and you ponder it in your heart until it happens. And so I did feel like we would have an early calendar after that first inspection. And maybe because I searched so fervently when I did go out for inspections just before the new moon cycle, because I did have that witness in my spirit. I went ahead and hung out after the IDF had closed many of those areas because of the rockets, and waited for the opportunity to get in there on that last day. And we were rewarded. We were rewarded with the Omer because I had that conviction, and I stuck with it because of that conviction and because of wanting to honor Elohim. So, yeah. So what's for the rest of the year? Well, I've got the black emmer, the wheat that should be ready for Shavuot, planted in the yard. I'll tell you when that happens. That still leaves 5 other species to wrap up the 12 months. And I'll tell you when the grapes are ripe, I'll tell you. Now, again, one of the things you should know is that I'm looking at only things that aren't watered and aren't fertilized. So I do know where grapes are. Here in the village that are no longer watered or fertilized. They're just old grapevines that grow on houses that nobody even harvests, but not on houses, on trellises that nobody even harvests. So I know where a couple of those are. Fig trees abundantly are everywhere without fertilization and without watering. So that leaves grapes, that leaves figs, that leaves pomegranates, and there's plenty of those around. That leaves olive trees. There's plenty of those around. I'm still speaking all unfertilized, all unwatered. And then there's the date trees. So we'll complete the calendar, or I will complete the calendar by continuing to follow these things throughout the throughout the year. And if we have determined the barley right, then the rest of that should fall pretty good too. So that's what's next. Next, we look forward, as we're counting that 50 days, we look forward to finding that the black wheat will be ready in the condition of green ears, by the way. before Shavuot. Thanks for watching.